Consumers are changing as far as how they want to buy goods or services, and they want to use digital forms of payment. We're enabling digital payments with cashless devices, and you can put on or point of sale kiosks consumers can use to check out. But also a big component of that is the software platform that manages what's happening at that location, vending machine, a miniature C-store, to know exactly what's selling, when to restock it.
In this episode, I'm talking to Elyssa Steiner, CMO of Cantaloupe. No, I'm not talking about the fruit. Cantaloupe is a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ, ticker symbol CTLP. They're a global leader in self-service commerce. So things like self-checkout, vending machines, etc. Their guidance for 2023 is $250 million in revenue. We're gonna, number one, deep dive into all of the company's marketing channels, in particular, how the company uses Facebook groups for community engagement. Number two, we're gonna figure out how they effectively leverage affiliate marketing. And number three, their approach to PPC ads. Hint, it's slowly becoming irrelevant. We're also gonna try to figure out how much money this company spends in marketing dollars. What is their cost per acquisition, CPA, and the lifetime value of their customers, LTV. And if you can't answer a question, we both have to take a shot of hot sauce. Wish me luck, Martians. Hope you enjoy this one.
Hello, Martians. Welcome back to another episode of Marketing on Mars. Today, I'm super excited for this episode. I don't know why. I was telling Elyssa earlier, but we have Elyssa Steiner. She's currently the CMO of a company called Cantaloupe. Basically, Cantaloupe, in just a quick sentence, they're a global tech leader. They're powering self-service commerce. And what that really means is, when you think about self-checkouts or vending machines or anything like that, this company powers much of the technologies that are out there. So super excited to chat with them about it. Elyssa, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you are calling in from Seattle, right?
I am, yes. Technically, middle of Washington State almost, if you want to think about it that way, but easiest way to tell people is Seattle area.
That's super cool. So you're not too far away from me. I'm in Vancouver, so we're just a couple of hours away.
Wow.
So before we dive into everything, we're going to dive into everything. The fact that you are a leader when it comes to marketing. You're the 40 under 40. You're part of that list. I'm going to dive into everything and also your background. But before we do that, we have a little tradition on the show. We usually start the show with a little shot of hot sauce. I have an assortment of hot sauce behind me. We're going to start off the show with a shot of hot sauce. And then throughout the interview, I'm going to ask you questions to figure out how the heck Cantaloupe grew so quickly. And every single time you cannot answer a question, we both take another shot of hot sauce. So that's the theme of the show. What weapon do you have for us today? What are you choosing as your weapon of choice?
I've got two options. I have Tapatio because I figured that was maybe kind of a safe bet for my
safe, yeah.
And then I have, what is this? Cholula, right?
Cholulas. Yeah, Cholulas. Yeah. Okay.
So that is well. I tried both a little bit, and that one felt hotter than the Tapatio to me.
Okay, so maybe we'll start with Tapatio. Those are on the lighter side. Are you not much of a spicy person? Like, what's the spiciest thing you've ever had?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I would definitely say anything probably like Thai food. I typically lean towards like spice, like, a 3-star when you go to a Thai restaurant. But but as far as like hot sauces, those don't tend to be in my normal like spice category. So that's why this might throw me off a little bit. I did grab chips just in case.
Have you ever for my hot sauce, it goes light here and then it goes spicier on here. This one called Rude Boy is actually based in Seattle. If you ever want to grab it, but it will kill you. It's Carolina Reaper, so it's really, really spicy. I'll start off the show with habanero. I'm going to start with middle of the pack, and then we'll work our way up.
All right. Gotta shake it good, right?
Gotta do a little shake, yeah.
The spoon.
All right. Go light first.
Okay.
I'm so excited to see this. All right. Cheers.
Cheers. Okay. That one, it burns a little.
No, it's definitely spicy. All right. Before we dive into Cantaloupe, I want to talk a little bit about your background. You started off working in retail, right? You were at Nordstrom, and then you moved over. You started working at a company called Avanti Markets, where you became kind of rose through the ranks, became VP of Sales and Marketing. And then over the course of the last 5 years, you really set yourself up as a marketing leader, becoming the director of marketing at Cantaloupe and then vice president. You're now CMO. Talk to us a little bit about your background, how you see yourself as a marketing leader, and just like your journey and how you became the CMO of Cantaloupe.
Yeah, it's interesting because I always thought I wanted to be in fashion. Hence why I worked at one of the largest retailers. I was doing that when I was in college. So I was like, I'm on a path. I know exactly where I want to go. I want to be a buyer. Like I had a very clear line of sight. And then I graduated and I was like, I want to try something different. And I wasn't sure if that was really the industry I wanted to be in. And so I decided to pivot, mainly just thinking something temporarily, to be honest. My dad had been in this kind of industry and on the CPG side. And so he needed somebody that was about to kick off a startup, Avanti Markets at that time, and really was like bringing in technology that was disrupting a kind of an old industry traditional vending machines. And so it was about bringing self-service technology to that space. And at that time, I was like super young in my career. It's like, why not? I'll try it. Also, I'd been in sales, obviously, at a retailer. So I was like, okay, I think I can, try this and see if it works. And maybe I'll do it for 2 years and then I'll kind of decide where I want to go next. Because I was also at this point in my life that I knew I wanted to get my master's and didn't really know what that meant. I wanted to take a little bit of time off before deciding that. So I started at Avanti Markets, and it's funny because I don't think I realized being so young how much that shaped kind of the person I am today, as far as like just making myself more rounded and understanding business, because I was able to be like entrenched into all aspects, right? Because I was probably fourth employee hired, and it was very innovative, disruptive into a space. So when you think about who's driving feedback to develop the product, being a product expert, selling with customers, working closely with customers, and then on the marketing side, as we grew, I just sort of kept taking over that responsibility. And I think that was just some of the advantages, and not really realizing until actually later in my career how valuable that was. Because, coming with P&Ls and doing all this stuff, I was like in my early 20s, right? Like, who does that? But it was really good exposure for me. And it's funny because I thought it would only be a couple of years, and I'm still in this like self-service kind of retail industry, of course, evolved as I then moved over to Cantaloupe Systems. And then we were acquired by USA Technologies back in 2017. And then we rebranded the company in 2021, actually, to Cantaloupe. So kind of full circle for me a little bit. But it's just been an amazing journey. I really never would have guessed it coming out of college that I would have sort of taken this path. But it's been a really exciting moment for me. And I'm excited to kind of talk a little bit more about some of this stuff today of what we do at Cantaloupe. But that's really kind of the short story of sort of my background and where I've sort of evolved from.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting that you made the pivot into a different, almost like a different area, not completely different, but you're thinking more fashion and a buyer. And now you're way more than that. You're touching every single part of the whole. Marketing really is like the blood of a business, right? And you moved towards that area. So that's so cool. How old were you when you made that shift again? You said you were early 20s?
let's see, I was probably, I think right around 21. So we're only.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this was pre-masters.
Yes.
Or like, because you went to Cornell in 2019 or something like that, or 20.
Yeah, I was actually working at Avanti Markets, leading sales and marketing, and got my master's. I went through Gonzaga. They do an online program.
Yeah.
And this was obviously pre-kids. So responsibility was like I work, and then after work in the evenings, I was doing online school. So yeah, and I decided to get my master's after I took about a year and a half off after my MBA, and decided to get it in communication and leadership because I had gotten my MBA in like business and marketing. And I felt like that was a nice complement, but still different. And so, yeah, it was probably one of the most kind of like chaotic times in my life, just given that like I had no free time for about 2 years doing that. But I was so young that it didn't matter, I think, a little bit, right? You've got like that extra energy just being young in general. So it sort of worked out timing wise for me.
Yeah. All right. Let's give some love to Cantaloupe, but we're going to shift gears.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you some questions. I want to figure out how you guys grew. I know roughly how well you guys are doing, but I'm going to ask you some questions so that the audience can understand just how big of a company Cantaloupe Systems is. Maybe in a couple of sentences, can you describe exactly what problem Cantaloupe Systems is solving and how you guys make money?
Yeah. So at Cantaloupe, as far as problems we solve today, if you think about consumers are changing as far as how they want to buy goods or services, and they want to use digital forms of payment. There's also a different expectation around, I want what I want when I want it. Right. And so part of what our platform and like our solutions provide in solving some of that is that obviously we're enabling digital payments with cashless devices and card readers that you can put on, or point of sale kiosks that consumers can use to check out. But also a big component of that is the software platform that manages what's happening at that location, vending machine, a miniature C-store, we call them micro markets in our vertical. All of those types of applications need something to centrally manage it, to know exactly what's selling, when to restock it. And so a lot of what the Seed platform does is it essentially optimizes a business from every aspect. It will dynamically schedule routes. It'll provide roll-ups of P&L across different business lines. It'll help you merchandise better. So really becoming sort of the optimization of your entire business so you can run as efficiently as possible is what the backend platform does, all to like, at the end result, give the consumer the best experience when they're at one of your machines or your locations, and enabling them to pay any way they want. So you think about it from kind of two perspectives of just like, how do consumers buy goods today? And then how do you make sure you deliver them the product at the right time when they want it? And that's really what we do.
Who are your main customers?
They're typically business owners. So we have kind of a wide variety. We've got like, our enterprise level, who these customers are, I don't want to name names because I can't name names because we're publicly traded. So I have to be a little careful in answering some of these questions, but typically like large food service providers. Some people might know or imply some large players I'm talking about. But they're vending company owners, or we have over 25,000 customers. And I would say, 20 to 22,000 of those are small business owners. So these guys and girls are people that are doing this as like a side hustle, and they might be running a small market. They might be putting card readers on car wash machines, right? They might be doing it at airback machines where you put air in your tire, or just a traditional food and beverage machine. So a lot of our customers want to fall into that bucket, which it's really just people doing, some side incremental income ideas and concepts, and entrepreneurs, if you want to think about it that way.
Oh, wow. So a lot of individual business owners that just have one location, or maybe they sell they offer one service. So that's like a huge portion. What would be some of your give me your top three clients, the top three companies that use your guys' service.
Oh no, this is gonna be a hot sauce question.
Oh, yeah, they were on there. They were on that. The producers were on that right away. Like they knew right away. All right.
Yeah, publicly traded. I can't share it. So here we go.
All right, here we go. I'm going up the food chain or the hot sauce chain, going a little spicier now.
I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Nervous on the next one here.
Yeah. See.
Are you filling up your? Oh dang! You go. Mine's like this.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay. Cheers.
Oh, that one burned a little more.
Yeah.
Taking a chip as like a chaser to it.
I was just saying I was preparing for the call and I ate all the chips, so I got nothing left. That was a bad idea. We should have started earlier. All right, so you can't share your biggest clients, but they're probably, as you alluded to, some of the larger ones. So we can almost guess who those players would be.
Yeah.
Did you guys raise it?
Large food service providers, you can kind of take a guess.
Yeah. Walmart. Maybe not. I didn't say anything, and Elyssa didn't say anything either, so we're not in trouble. How much did your company raise any money at all, or was it fully like bootstrapped?
So we went public in 1994. So it really kind of irrelevant for us. The question I answered it, so I don't think that's a hot sauce question.
It's not a hot sauce question. Wait, so you guys are still public right now, so we can figure out exactly how much you guys are worth right now. Can we? So I'm saying, I don't know if this is correct, but you guys are like 200 million in revenue kind of thing.
So I can kind of answer this one. So we're about to close out our fiscal 23. It ends June 30th. So home stretch for us right now. But we did give guidance earlier in the year that we would hit around 240 to 250. So we couldn't have clear line of sight to our guidance that we provided earlier in the fiscal year. Okay.
So that makes a lot of sense. And then I'm seeing, you guys are publicly traded on the NASDAQ, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
TPLP is the ticker.
Yeah. Well, anyone looking for something to invest in, fast growth. You guys, I heard that you guys have grown quite a bit because of COVID, obviously. A lot of side hustles, a lot of new businesses coming out, everyone wanting touchless, forms of payment. How did you guys do from, let's say, like 2020 until now? Like, has it been a pretty wild 3 years?
Yeah. I think just from like a consumer perspective, the acceptance of paying via self-service experiences has grown drastically because of COVID. People don't want to touch physical money. They also don't want to hand their card to somebody. They prefer no human interaction, and like going through 2 years of kind of experiencing that has definitely created far more awareness and acceleration of just like self-service technologies everywhere. Because you think about it now, you can go to airports and you see all of like the newsstand, little convenience stores in them. Mostly now are all adopting self-checkout stations that are cashless only, just to make it easier for consumers. So I think COVID has definitely accelerated that. It's also just accelerated payments, like contactless payments. Pre-COVID, we used to see contactless make up, as far as the percentage of cashless, only around like 2 to 3%. So people just tapping their card or using a mobile wallet, right? It was very low adoption and it was super slow. But then through COVID, it gained so much momentum that now it's upwards around like 30% of cashless payments are done via like a contactless method, which is incredible to kind of see that like shift. Just like consumers, I think of all ages, started to figure out, how do I use my mobile wallet versus handing my card, or how do I just tap my card now? Because if you insert chip, it feels like it takes forever, right? It's the speed.
Oh, yeah.
So that has definitely helped us as far as growth in what we do and the services and products that we provide. Early COVID, though, I think it was challenging for everybody. I mean, everybody was working from home. Office locations were basically shut down. And, some of our locations are in an office complex, not all of them, but certainly some of them are. So I think for every business, there was a bit of a dip during kind of that peak early year of COVID. But we're well past that and have accelerated quite well, just given all these kind of like cultural, environmental kind of changes that we see coming out of it, but also just like as we see going forward with inflation, labor shortages, all of this stuff continues to just drive demand for what we do because we help you be really efficient. And oh, by the way, put a self-checkout kiosk in here. So now you become less dependent on your labor challenges, right? So just so many advantages given a lot of what's happened just economically too, that is making what we do be a really nice solution for a lot of business owners of all sizes.
Oh my goodness. So many things you said there that I want to dive into, like a million different ways. I do want to come back and talk a little bit about the inflationary environment that we're in, but recession, quote unquote, and all the different things that are, all the different factors that are kind of impacting the job market right now with AI technology. That's a big one, robotics. And then now all this touchless, cashless, contactless solutions. I want to dive into that. But before we do that, let's dive a little bit deeper into Cantaloupe Systems. You guys target businesses, majority, from large enterprise all the way down to the solo entrepreneur. Talk to me a little bit about your marketing activity. What channels are you guys using to attract businesses? We get a lot of B2B companies come on our show, and we hear a lot of different trends. I'm very excited to hear about what you guys are seeing, because you guys have a lot of businesses that you work with.
Yeah, it's interesting because given like our breadth of like customers and the variety of them, we definitely have found that certain tactics work better for our enterprise versus our small business. It's almost like a B2B play just with our enterprise, which is common in SaaS type of companies. No surprise there. So channels like going to trade shows and events, things that are email marketing is a huge channel for us in general across any of these segments. Things around like, how are we going to market with products? So, because we do a lot of things around commercializing new products, because there's a lot of ways you can upsell into the enterprise space. So add-on services. So a lot of our stuff, even our account-based marketing efforts, all fixated around approaches to our enterprise space. For our small business, we've learned that they function very B2C. So our tactics are much different. We focus a lot of our paid strategy around small business owners. And we've just found that makes the most sense to segment it that way. Paid isn't really a key factor when we think about enterprise, at least today in our kind of niche vertical that we serve. And then things around like, what are we doing from a social content development? How are we providing educational resources? A lot of these small business owners are on Facebook groups. And so how are we actively engaging in those Facebook groups? How are we giving them that kind of content that helps them grow their business? We started dabbling into affiliate marketing, even though we're not, I think what's interesting is, we're not a typical like B2C consumer product, but the way that they respond to marketing efforts tend to fall into like a B2C tactic. So while it's not as transactional as like buying clothing or a consumer good, there's a little bit more of a different sales cycle there. It definitely leans into similar approaches that we use for that small business segment.
Yeah. And you're saying email marketing works for both enterprise and the small business side? Yeah, but you email for both?
Email is probably one of our larger channels that we use just from a marketing perspective, but it's very effective in the small business space. So we have certain tactics that we do that, one to many make it feel like it's coming from a sales rep. Everybody's used to that kind of approach, but it works well. We run a lot of pricing promotions for small business, right? Just like, you think about leaning into B2C tactics, Labor Day sales, Memorial Day sales, like those are kind of things we're doing to really kind of lean into what they typically respond to and then what triggers them to buy.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say the small businesses act like B2C because they're typically more receptive to ads, typically more receptive to emails. But I'm seeing this trend, and I'm curious what you think. I'm seeing this trend where B2C, even like retail, like consumers, the traditional B2C people, demographics, they're getting smarter as well. Mm-hmm. And so things like ads and emails, you have to make it very personalized and it has to feel like you're talking to them. Are you experiencing this at all? Number one. And number two, what kind of techniques, like how are you changing your paid strategy and how are you changing your email so that it's more personalized?
Yeah, email's interesting. I feel like email, we've just gotten far more what feels like one-to-one in the way we communicate. So, a perfect example is, HTML looking emails versus text-based emails, right? That look like they're coming from a rep versus that look like marketing sent you some kind of promo email. Yeah. We found that those text-based ones work far better. And so we've leaned into just adjusting and that level of effort for my team to create the HTML one is it's not, not drastic, but it's more effort, right?
It's more,
yeah. So for us, it's like, okay, if we're going to do this, we might use it as one in the drip series or in the nurture campaign, but then we lean drastically once we start getting engagement, they click, whatever, we start heavily just going straight to text-based. So we've definitely altered with that. For paid's interesting. I think that, one of the things, you're absolutely right. People know they're being served up a paid ad. People aren't silly now when you go to Google and you see sponsored at the top, right? Like everybody knows. So I think for us with some of our paid strategies, we've learned that certain ones give us a really good, cost per lead. And those are the ones that we want to lean into. And a lot of times they're brand related, right? So that at least recently, that's what we've leaned into. There's a couple other ones that have also worked really well for us around some of the small business getting started under our subscription programs and things like that. So we've been leaning into those, but we've tried to pivot a little bit because I feel like part of it is also just how are we building out our affiliate programs? And we've been dabbling into this over the last 6 months, kind of the back half of our fiscal year. And we've learned a lot based off of just some of the influencers that we've tried to start onboarding. But to that point, it's they are oftentimes a trusted advisor in a way to their followers, or they engage with their followers, right? Quite a bit. And so we've been really trying to say, okay, how do we sort of shift some of our attention? And both of these are for the small business, tactics. But how do we just kind of shift and figure out how to start driving content with influencers into their follower network? Because it also might just present a whole new growth channel for us. They might be talking to people and people might be following them that may not even know who we are, right? So it creates another net new kind of demand gen channel for us that we continue to kind of want to explore as we go into our we're turning a corner July 1 into our next fiscal year. So probably we'll see a lot more of what we do around that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Oh man. I want to dive into PPC, but I also want to dive into Facebook groups because that's very interesting. And I also want to dive into affiliate. What's our timing looking like? Okay. We're at 28 minutes. Let's dive into PPC. You said each different channel, and this is more for the B2C side. For the enterprise side, you're right. No PPC. It's just not relevant. Businesses are not going to, click buy now through an ad because they're the ones that are running the ads. They know exactly the game. So they're almost immune to ads. It's kind of crazy. But for the paid ad side, for the B2C segment, you said certain channels have better CPL. Which channels work for you right now? What are your top 2 or 3 paid PPC channels?
Well, we do some paid with some of like the trade publications, and just because their audience is so niche to our core business today, for us, that is an easier play for us because they already know who we are. But as far as some of our other more broad paid search campaigns that we are running, it tends to be, like I was mentioning, the brand ones, the brand awareness ones that we do for search, and then some of our display ones in conjunction. Those ones tend to perform well. I mentioned one of our subscription ones. We just rolled out this program, Cantaloupe One, kind of during this past fiscal year. And it's about getting started essentially for $0 up front, right? So again, a really nice entry point for small business owners who may be cash constrained to actually get started into cashless payments and being able to add those onto their machine. So we've seen, and that's very targeted too, right? So we've seen those ones perform well. It surprised me though, like some of our retargeting ones aren't performing as well as you would naturally think, right? They're just not rendering for the spend. So it's sort of at that stage where it's like, you know, where do we really focus our paid ads in, and or what is acceptable that we say is the cost per lead, right? Because it can vary if it's a brand one versus we're going to use this channel for just our growth initiatives for new verticals, maybe, right? Which we know the cost per lead is going to be higher because they don't know who we are. But setting those parameters really is what's going to kind of drive the behavior. And then the challenge I think about paid is just like, you've got to be on it all the time, right? Because if you're not managing against those parameters, it can get out of hand and start to get really costly, and you don't know where your money's going. And it's funny, I had somebody recently say, she was talking to me about how it was about paid, and was like, oh, you know, someone's asking for, let's just say, another $40K for this specific campaign, and she's not really sure if it's going to work. She's like, but I presented the concept of, what if you had a brand new Volvo and you just drove it into a wall, right? Like that, it just like, you just crashed the, right? So like, cause if you don't know if it's going to work, why are we doing it? Or like, if it's not viable to test, why are we doing it? And she said it to me and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Like, you should think about it that way, right? Like, it's, people say and think about it as if it's your own money, but that's also another great way to, like, a metaphor to think about, like, oh yeah, like you shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah, like here's a brand new Volvo. We don't know if the brakes work fully, but it is nice and it's 40,000 only, right?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And when you just I don't know.
I've heard a lot. So it sounds like trade publications and Google search ads are your two top paid channels. I've been hearing to your point about retargeting, because of the recent. Almost every single platform has had new like data privacy updates. And so retargeting is becoming harder and harder, if not impossible. Everything is basically brand awareness nowadays. Retargeting just doesn't work, is what I've been hearing everybody. And also my personal, I personally run budgets for BC Jobs, one of the companies where I'm the CEO. And we've cut back at all of our Facebook spend. Zero. Instagram, zero. LinkedIn, we still do a little bit, but to your point, 90% of our spend, 95% of our spend is Google now. It's the only channel that still works because it's still search. You get legitimate clicks, and the cost per acquisition or cost per lead is still relatively reasonable.
Yeah.
Right? So
exactly. And there's depending on the tactics there's intent to some extent. So it's especially for our products, like running social ads, I think the buyer doesn't have intent to see a card reader ad in their feed, right? And then it's also like, we are all used to getting bombarded in our social feeds with that kind of stuff that we also tend to just skip right over it. So we pulled back a while ago around social stuff. LinkedIn is an interesting play because we look at it for verticals that we want to go into that we know have mid-market enterprise level customers that may not know who we are. So again, it's a little bit more tactic driven of why we would use it, because LinkedIn can get pretty expensive quickly. But that's kind of our approach to, if we use it, we'll use it in that regard.
Yeah, we've had a handful of companies that are just killing it on LinkedIn. One of the things that they're doing, you can upload a CSV or like a folder of exactly who you want to target. So because they're targeted exactly, like let's say you want to target me, you can put my name on there. It will throw the ad just to me. It's cheaper that way because it's not broad, and also it's more targeted. You get legit people looking at your ads, and not just a bunch of random people. I think LinkedIn is probably one of the best platforms for. They don't have a lot of bot activity versus Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, but LinkedIn is starting to get bot activity. And so doing a strategy like this, you're able to target people that you know for sure are not bots. So things to look out for you. What is your like blended like? Do you have like a CPA, like the cost to acquire a user, something like that you can share?
Okay, so this is going to be a hot sauce question.
Oh my God. I can see it in your face.
I know. I get so nervous every time. I'm like, shoot, I can't answer this. Again, publicly traded. That's my disclosure around that. Now, I could share LTV to CAC because we have shared at Investor Day, but I cannot share CPA or LTV separately. If that.
Okay, what's the okay? What's the LTV to CAC before we take our shot of
9-to-1 ratio? So our product's really sticky.
Wow.
Once we get it in, and then I mentioned there's a ton of software kind of upsell layers as you grow your business. But a lot of times what happens is like for a customer to pull that out, replace it, it's really not worth it for them. I mean, you really got to kind of upset them so much that they're motivated to do that, to be honest. Otherwise, it just gets really sticky. And then the more we layer on software services, the stickier it gets. So, and then when you compare that with sort of our go-to-market strategy with our direct sales, but our indirect channels to kind of leverage distribution downstream, it just gets a really attractive model.
Wow. Okay. 9-to-1. That's really strong.
Do we have to take it? Yeah, it's really strong.
We'll take a shot of hot sauce.
Should we get it out of the way?
I'm getting spicier. I'm gonna go Carolina Reaper. Nervous about this?
I feel like I should put it in there. It's not fair. No, I'll put it on a spit.
All right.
You pour a lot. I don't know how you do that.
I'm doing less for this one because I'm going up the scale.
All right.
Cheers.
Ready?
Nope. Oh.
Dude. That one burned a little more in my throat.
Oh my goodness. This is so spicy. We got some orange juice.
Orange juice? Is that the trick?
No, it's not. It's not. There is no trick. There is no trick. Once it gets spicy, there's nothing you can do about it. Oh man. Yeah. Your LTV, it must be like, I'm just going to take a wild guess and you can blink once if it's close. I'm guessing like, okay, your CAC is probably like $1,000 or $2,000.
I'm just going to look like non-responsive.
Maybe 5,000 because guys, B2B, it's difficult to acquire customers. It's not cheap. You got to do a lot of different things. You know, all the things that we talked about, but okay, yeah, we're not getting any reactions, so we're gonna move on. How much are you guys spending? So you guys are events, paid, email, content, everything. What's your like monthly or annual marketing budget? I hope that's shareable.
So I'm gonna answer this, and I think it's gonna avoid the hot sauce. So can't necessarily share just the marketing spend. However, we do disclose marketing and sales as one budget line item. And so collectively, we're at approximately 12 million per year. So I gave you a number, but it's combined with sales.
Okay. I think we'll accept that.
Is that acceptable?
What percent of that is marketing versus sales?
I can't tell you that.
Damn it! I thought we could. Okay, the lights are not off. I think we're good. We're good for now. All right. We talked about top learnings already. What is your thought on? Because a lot of the companies that you work with are business owners, and a lot of them are retail.
I just
sorry.
Right.
You're listening.
It's my laptop.
Okay. Did you get the last part? We're talking about a lot of your Okay, so a lot of your companies or your clients are businesses that are. A lot of them are probably selling some type of retail product, right? E-com. What do you think about Amazon as a platform to sell? Like, I know they were really popular years ago. Do you see a lot of your clients selling on Amazon as well?
I actually think it's an interesting play. So one of the things that we've been doing is like, okay, in our small business segment, because you got to think again, like this is like a thousands of like customers. Sure. Maybe, you think about revenue tied to quantity per customer, not as high as enterprise, but the opportunities are casting a wider net. So for us, e-commerce and how do we grow online through online marketplaces is definitely an area that we're looking into more. We do have like an online store today. Certainly have been trying to drive customers who want that B2C experience. Like a lot of people, especially think about younger generations, they don't want to talk to a sales rep. Like if I know I just want to add a card reader onto my machine, like I already know I want to do that. I just want to go online and buy it, right? Like that's the behavior. I don't want to talk to somebody to like figure out if I need it or not. I know I want it. So for us, I think something like Amazon is an interesting play because you think again about the behaviors of younger generations, might be wanting to do a side hustle business or something that they want to start as like, just like they're very entrepreneurial. Where do they go to find stuff? Like sometimes look on Amazon. Like I do, and I'm not necessarily, Gen Z. So like, I think it's an interesting play. So I definitely think it's something that, for our more of our commodity like products that we could certainly look to sell there because the buyers are there. And I think that's just a way we have to think about business these days. It's like, yes, there are different segments of customers and they all behave differently. And also the generations that are coming in as business owners or as entrepreneurs wanting to get into these types of businesses, how do they behave and where do they typically buy and where do they go? And how do we just make it easier to get our products? So I think Amazon's interesting. I definitely think it's something, we want to explore a little bit more for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right. You mentioned one last thing, and then we'll move to two last questions, and then we'll move over to a different segment of the show. Number one, Facebook groups. You mentioned that being a very popular channel for you guys. Facebook, people are still using Facebook groups.
We discovered this years ago. There are shockingly multiple, I'll use vending as a perfect example, vending Facebook groups with, I'm talking upwards of 20,000 members. They post daily, almost hourly, all sorts of questions, like whether it's just like, how do I get started? How do I find a location? Or, hey, I'm having this issue with X, Y, and Z. Can someone help me? It's like very educational, but they also clearly lean into each other for answers. And so it's really interesting. It's almost like you think about mini communities on Facebook, and that's what these groups have created. So even for us, there's even one that's just like Cantaloupe vending users, right? So that people that are just using our products can go into that Facebook group. So I think you also have to be careful in how like you interact in those groups. It's better to be helpful than it is to think of it as a platform to advertise in. Because obviously you get kicked out right away. So it's more about like, how can I keep a pulse on it? How is it a part of our social strategy in a sense of how are we helping and provide information, education, sometimes making sure a support person reaches out to so-and-so because they're currently experiencing this issue, whatever it might be. But being very responsive tends to just fall into a component of our social strategy. And it has to, otherwise you sort of become, I think then you become almost like this too big of a company that these buyers don't then want to deal with if you are unresponsive. So it's kind of a fine line in these groups for sure.
Community is so important. Is whatever. I think we were talking about this just before the recording. Like community is so key. And the fact that you are able to tap into a 20,000 person community. And by the way, community, what does that really mean? It really is about helping each other and connecting and supporting each other. That's the whole point of community. Yeah. There should be no sales related to it. Nothing. So when you guys are joining these communities and responding, are you guys responding as Cantaloupe or are you guys responding as Elyssa? Like, and trying not to show affiliation.
Yeah, we sometimes will respond as Cantaloupe. It just depends. Typically, if it's like a support related question, when you need to get them to a support agent, we'll typically respond. Otherwise, we have a couple of team members on the sales side that do respond, again, not in a tactic of trying to sell somebody, in a tactic of being helpful, but they've been in the industry for a really long time, and so it comes natural to them to respond. So they do respond off of their personal. It's interesting because you say that, and it's also like you want to be careful because now you're getting personal profiles mixed into it. And just because we are, I think in any business, regardless small and maybe it gets more difficult the larger you are, that does become a careful line that you have to kind of walk and set the right expectations to those employees that are engaging. And it's interesting because it's not like you're the owner of the community, right? So you're a little it's completely out of your control, which is totally fine. But you also got to just figure out how you balance being helpful without overstepping.
Yeah, those communities are really interesting. I'd love to, maybe not today, but a different time, chat more about community. It seems like we're both passionate about it. I personally started communities on my own, but more in-person communities. And I haven't cracked the nuts for online communities yet. But in-person communities, I kind of figured out how to do it. It's all about curation and bringing the right people in the room. That's all in-person events are about, or communities are about. But online communities is interesting. You need activity.
Yeah.
As soon as there's no activity, people leave right away.
Yeah.
So how it's like a chicken and egg. Do you get the egg first? Do you get people talking first and then bring people on? Or do you bring people on and then start talking? But you kind of have to have both at the same time. And it's like, it's difficult. I've been on so many communities and they just die right away as soon as people stop talking. But last question, and we'll move over to a fun segment, fun news segment. This was a surprise I was telling you about. We talked about a lot of different channels. If you had to choose your best performing channel by CAC or ROI, what is your number one channel and why? We'll be really quick with this one.
I think today, event. I don't know if that's going to be the case necessarily going forward, but I think today events, and I say that with in-person events. I think coming out of COVID and mainly just this current year, we've seen this pick up drastically, is that people have a need to connect with people in person and kind of have those natural conversations that they're not having outside of their small world that they just live in for their business. And so for us, events provide a lot of ROI today. We just came out of one of our largest trade shows back in May. And it was and I've gone to this probably my 10th one at this show specifically. and we had the best performing like sales pipeline coming out of it. They closed deals in the first 3 weeks post the show that surpassed the show. It was amazing. So again, I just think, and it was the first time that show had experienced pre-COVID numbers. So I think there's just like a need for it right now. Do I think it's always going to be that way? I don't know, but definitely this year we've seen that kind of turn a corner. And as they picked up, they've also proven to just be quite effective for us. Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. All right. So this next segment is I don't have a name for it yet. Feel free to put your marketing hat on and help me come up with some names. I'm gonna tell you 3 jokes, marketing related jokes. If you laugh at any of them, you take a shot of hot sauce. If you don't laugh at any of the 3, I will take a shot of hot sauce. All right.
Okay, so I'm a sucker for this. I'm gonna end up laughing. If all 3 of them, if I laugh at any of them, then I take one.
Yeah, any one of them. Even if you laugh at all 3, you take one.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Ready.
Why did the social media marketer get kicked out of the restaurant?
Oh, I'm supposed to answer these too?
Yeah. Well, you don't have to answer it.
Okay, why?
If you don't know. Because he wanted to share everyone else's food. No, that's bad. Okay, that was bad. That was not. All right.
It was.
All right. Second joke. Why was the computer broke at the coffee shop?
I don't know why.
Because it spilled its Java. Cheers. Okay.
I hope you didn't write these.
I did not write any of these. It's horrible. All right, last one. And then I might have to take a shot. All right. Why did the AI cross the road?
I don't know why.
Because it was programmed by a chicken.
Oh my gosh. These are terrible.
Oh, bad. These are horrible. What the? I should take a shot just for this. Damn it, ChatGPT. This was ChatGPT.
Oh, it gave you these?
Yeah, ChatGPT is not funny. I gotta find better jokes. I'm working on this one. All right, I'll take this. Is me.
Okay. We got it.
All right, I think we got a few more minutes left. I think it'll be cool for the audience to just learn a little bit more about you.
Okay.
And your background, right? We've heard a lot about the company, a little bit about you, but let's dive in a little bit. So obviously you started working at Nordstrom. That was like your first role. And then you made a decision to switch, right?
Okay.
Did you have like a what was family life for you growing up? Like, did you grow up with parents that were pretty entrepreneurial in marketing, and so you kind of gravitated towards that, or were they more in fashion? Is that why you went into fashion, or what was it like growing up for you?
Yeah, so my mom was actually like a dietitian, so she was always kind of more in like nutrition, working for like hospitals typically. And my dad, I mentioned I got into this industry because he's actually, so my dad used to, when I was like really little, used to manage a vending business. And then he switched, when I was in high school, he switched and started working for a CPG provider in the same space. And they've gone through acquisitions, but he still works for essentially the same kind of CPG company today. And he manages the vending channel. So I have grown up in this industry, which is probably why it wasn't completely out of left field for me to, decide to try a career in this space. Again, I didn't expect to be. Even my dad told me when I took this job, was like, this is just for experience. I don't want you to get stuck in this space, right? Now, granted, technology had never disrupted this market. So I was tuning into a startup that was a technology company, and they like vending machines as an industry is just like known as destination of last resort by consumers. It's just like kind of archaic. Historically, it's been. And so it was like, okay, we're going to introduce technology. We're going to introduce people paying through self-checkouts and like how this concept could completely change the industry. And at this time, it was actually during the recession, I think in 2010, somewhere around there.
2009, 2008.
Yeah. We're trying to like come up with a new idea to kind of reboot that space. And so that was why I pivoted, was really just because it's funny, you said family, and I working at a large retailer and sort of thinking I wanted to be in fashion, thinking I wanted to go down and be a buyer at some point. And I was very like dead set on that's what I wanted to do. I also realized that having my own family was also very important to me at some point later down the road in my life. And I really didn't see a balance in like work and personal life and granted, maybe that has completely changed, but from my perception, those at that time in those roles seemed to lean towards like life was their job. And so for me, it was like, I don't know if I want to do this. So it was like, I need to try something different, and being kind of open to just pivoting because I was so young. Like we all go to school for stuff, but sometimes we don't ever do what we went to school for. So it was kind of like one of those moments in my life. Didn't know what I was getting into, but here I am, still kind of in the same vertical and industry. So it's definitely proven to be like a very exciting journey for me, for sure.
Did your dad help at all getting your role at Cantaloupe? Like, because he was in the vending space, and it's kind of payments / vending. You mentioned like some vending machines use your technology.
Yeah, not at Cantaloupe. He definitely got me helped me get the job at Avanti Markets for sure.
Markets.
But actually my career at Avanti, getting exposed to other companies in the industry, that was actually how I got introduced to previously Cantaloupe Systems. The co-founders, they had seen me, they were at one of my user conferences for Avanti. And they were like, well, what you're doing, to talk to you. Like, would you be interested in basically building a marketing team for us? And at that point, I was like maybe around like 25. And I was like,
holy smokes.
I was older than that. I was probably like 26, maybe 27. And
still very young. In the grand scheme of things, that was really young.
And I was like getting so pulled into sales because we were growing so fast at Avanti that I was like, hey, this might actually be a really good opportunity for me to pause, see if I want to do like a career just in marketing, not in sales. And so that's why it's like all about building your network. I mean, I feel like nowadays, a lot of times introductions to new opportunities, or even in my experience, it's all been about somebody helped connect me, or I just had a network. And at that point, like it was like they were seeing what I was doing and like really excited about it. And then I just got excited about having the opportunity to like, in a way, create my own little startup of like a marketing team, because they weren't small. They were about 75 employees at that time. So a little bigger than where I left Avanti. But that's what excited me for sure.
Yeah. All right, last question, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Being a C-suite and a leader, part of being a good leader is like, obviously you learn from your past experiences, but as you move forward, you want to learn from other good leaders, and maybe surrounding yourself in a network of other CMOs makes you a better CMO and a better leader. Are you part of any groups like that where you are like peer groups or anything, or I don't know, any kind of similar groups?
Yeah, I just joined Next Up. So it's like a women-led group, all about women in leadership roles, empowering women. So really excited. Actually, one of our board members just became the CEO of Next Up. So really excited to get involved. They have basically kind of chapters all across the country. And so they have one out of Seattle. So Pre-COVID, I used to be actively involved in the CMO club and, I think it was the CMO club.
CMO club, Salesforce?
Yeah.
Yeah, then they shut down.
Yeah, they shut it down just recently. But I love doing that pre-COVID because they would have almost like quarterly meetups. And it's so nice because we always get stuck kind of in like what we're doing and what our team's doing in the day-to-day, that to actually step out of that and hear what other people are doing in completely different industries. But a lot of times there's similarities into approaches. They just might be a little bit different based off of like customers and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely big advocate of getting involved in those things. I think, there's always, I'm just a natural learner, and I think we should always kind of be learning from other people. Sometimes I joke the best marketers take other people's ideas. And
sure.
Well, whether there's a little bit of truth to that, I don't know. But I just think, absorbing and being kind of a sponge with others that are in leadership roles, and even they don't have to be marketers. Like a lot of CEOs have a lot of great perspective as well. And I think that's also been an advantage, just that I've experienced a multitude of different CEOs through the companies I've been at, that I learn a little bit from each of them as well. So yes, I think it's great to be a part of those things. And I certainly love to participate in them as well.
Yeah. I think there's a quote somewhere saying like the most successful people don't copy others, they steal from others, and then they just make it their own, right? Like,
get inspired.
That's a better word. That's a better word to use than steal. We'll use that word instead. All right. Well, Elyssa, thank you so much for coming on. It was a blast. I'm gonna have to work on my jokes. Those were horrible. Like those were bad. I deserve to take a shot on that one. Yeah, but
you gotta ask GPT to do a better job next time.
Maybe I got to upgrade to ChatGPT 4.5 or 5 whenever they come up with the next update. Yeah. It was a pleasure. We'll definitely have to do this round 2. Would love to chat with you more about community and stuff. Obviously, we only had an hour. For people listening that want to keep in touch with either you or Cantaloupe Systems, what's the best way for them to learn more about the company and also to keep up with your personal career?
Yeah. For the company, you can certainly follow us, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Typically all of them are at Cantaloupe Inc. or Cantaloupe. You can find all of them on our website, cantaloupe.com. Cantaloupe spelled just like the fruit. So that's the easiest way. And then for me, I think the easiest way is I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. You can easily find me under Elyssa Steiner. So certainly happy to kind of connect and network with people. And those are kind of probably the easiest ways to get a hold of both us as a company and then myself too.
All right, sweet. Well, this is it. Kind of sad. I still have a lot of hot sauce here. We're not too far away. We're going to have to, I might come out to Seattle. We've interviewed a handful of CMOs in Seattle. So I might come out and do like a meetup or something at some point. So maybe we'll get to meet in person.
Yeah, I would love that. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, guys, that's it for another spicy episode of Marketing on Mars. I'm really not sure who got burned more, my taste buds or the guest taste buds. My mouth is on fire. Real talk though, if you're not already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Each episode I make is basically an unedited, raw dinner with some of the leading marketing voices. They tell us the truth or they take a shot of hot sauce. We're on almost every single platform: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and more. There's really no excuse. Until next time, Martians, keep it hot and keep it real.